Members of the BRICS alliance have criticized U.S. tariffs, saying they threaten global trade.
Trump threatens extra 10% tariffs on BRICS as leaders meet in Brazil. Trump threatens extra 10% tariff on nations siding with BRICS. 100%. That's the tariff Wall Street feared the moment BRICS leaders signed a single sheet of paper in Rio. Trade desks warn it could drain hundreds of billions of dollars from U.S. exports before the year is out. But the bigger punch hides in the headcount. The enlarged bloc now speaks for 56% of humanity and commands 44% of global GDP by purchasing power. That weight lets Rio write rules. Washington once rubber-stamped. Former President Donald Trump felt the tremor. Within hours, he threatened a blanket 10% levy on every product arriving from any nation that sides with BRICS, a climb down from last year's 100% warning shot, yet still a tax cannon aimed straight at the checkout aisle. Why the retreat? Because the dollar's share of world reserves has slipped to 58%, the lowest in 3 decades, and America can't risk a currency revolt and a trade war at the same time. So, what happens next to interest rates, to your grocery bill, to the supply chain winding from Shenzhen to Chicago? Stay with us as we unpack the new tariff playbook and show how a multipolar alliance just did what Moscow or Beijing alone never could. Rewrite the global market in under 2 hours of negotiations. Indonesia's flag was barely hoisted at the BRICS dais on January 6, 2025, before traders felt the ground tilt. With Jakarta's signature, the bloc locked in its 11th full member and signaled that Nigeria, Vietnam, and Malaysia, already accepted as partner countries, are next in the queue, each one bringing fresh ports, oil fields, or chip plants to the table. That swelling roster now speaks for more than half the world's population and 40% of global economic output. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva reminded delegates in Rio on July 6th. Those two figures matter more than any speech. 53 cents of every export dollar, 56 cents of every soybean and lithium shipment can now bypass Washington's rulebook if the new members choose collective bargaining over bilateral pleading. The White House saw the math months ago. On November 30, 2024, President-elect Donald Trump threatened a flat 100% tariff on any BRICS nation that backs a rival currency, warning they would wave goodbye to America's market. Financial desks called it a neutron bomb, invisible, total, and designed to kill demand without toppling infrastructure. Yet size rewrites strategy. By the time leaders gathered in Rio this July, the threat had softened to an extra 10% levy. Still painful, but also a tacit admission that an outright blockade against half the planet would ricochet straight into U.S. inflation. Even that smaller cannon shot is rattling supply chains. Malaysia's trade minister, watching from Kuala Lumpur, warned Congress in December that a 100% tariff aimed at BRICS would punch a hole in the semiconductor pipeline. That is no small risk for a hub that tests and packages about 13% of the world's chips. Chip designers in Austin and Silicon Valley heard the message: cut tariffs or cut production. Add Indonesia's oil deals, Nigeria's deep-water acreage, and Vietnam's fast-track ports, and the bloc now controls raw material routes that feed everything from fuel tanks to iPhones. In other words, the geopolitical deck has been reshuffled. Every new signature under the BRICS banner shrinks Washington's leverage, making any future tariff hike costlier at home than abroad. And with 24 more capitals hovering around the membership door, today's warning shot could become tomorrow's trade reroute. One container, one currency swap, one lost export market at a time. Trump's tariff cannon did not roll out overnight. In the weeks after his election, he signaled that any BRICS nation flirting with a joint currency would face sweeping import penalties. Wall Street called it financial shock and awe. factories scrambled to model a world without Brazilian soy or Indian pharmaceuticals. But by July 8, 2025, the tune had shifted. At a White House meeting, Trump said the levy would be only 10%, and even that might wait until BRICS members took anti-American actions. Investors heard a quieter message. Washington had spotted the cliff edge of tariff brinkmanship. That edge is painted green. IMF reserve data summarized by Investopedia show the dollar's share of global currency stashes has slipped to 57.7%, a three-decade low. Less cushion means less room for trade war. Yet the greenback still rides shotgun in roughly 90% of worldwide FX trades, the Bank for International Settlements notes, turning every tariff tweet into a thump on currency desks. Dominant in transactions, shrinking in savings, that split explains the policy whiplash. Treasury officials concede even a 10% wall could lift long-term borrowing costs as foreign buyers diversify away from treasuries.